There's a new way to stay connected and know what's happening with Market to Market when you subscribe to Market Insider. One email and a lot of information awaits you. Go to markettomarket.org and subscribe to Market Insider. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Yeager. This is the MTOM podcast, a production of Iowa PBS and the Market to Market TV show. This week, we are going to get a little sciencey, but also a little technology. We're going to mix a natural response to rootworm and a company that is trying to build itself from the ground up, that started in New York, has roots in Texas, and now is based in Iowa. I had a chance meeting with Keegan Shields a few weeks ago, and we had a great conversation that night. And we're going to continue it now and actually record the discussion. We're going to find out what his company, Persistent BioControl, is all about, how it started. It has roots at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and he's going to talk about his growing up with his father and the work that he did going from farm to farm, doing research, and how that led to a response for using nematodes and specifically getting rid of rootworm. So way more agriculture heavy than normal, but this is absolutely something we all should kind of know about what's going on with producers around us. That is what our topic is today. If you have any feedback for me, send me an email at paul.yeager@iowapbs.org. New episodes of this podcast come out each and every Tuesday. Now let's get to Keegan for this discussion. I did give you a hard time about your dress, but have you gotten used to Midwest winters yet? I mean, you did grow up in New York, so you do know cold, but just a tiny bit of time in Texas will thin someone's blood.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was 20 years ago. I went in the Marine Corps when I was 17, and I was in all warm places, so I basically lost any kind of cold tolerance.
Is that because the Army's in the cold places, the Marines just get the hot stuff?
Yeah, beaches and, on the coast.
Yeah, not the coast. You grew up in upstate New York, Ithaca, right?
Yep. Our company, our technology is based on research my father did at Cornell University. So there were a lot of fun summers of free labor, helping out with that stuff, which I appreciate now that I'm a parent, and tired kids are better behaved. So
they are, right? Yeah. Your dad was a professor there or a researcher at the university?
Yeah, he spent 36 years there. He's an entomologist by training, and he was in extension for 36 years and also research. So, he likes to say his students were the farmers of New York, and I think they had a great partnership over his career.
Did you have any thought that you were going to enter? You're in the family business, but not exactly in the family business.
Yeah, no, I never expected it. I mean, like I went in the Marine Corps early and then got out, was in the business world, and I think like a lot of veterans, you get out of the military, it's a very mission and value driven, and you get in the business world and everything seems to be kind of shades of gray. So when we came up with the idea for this company, I thought it might be a good opportunity to do some good, and it's kind of the next phase of the research that he did while at Cornell.
And so you go into the Marines, and did you then go to UT in Austin, or is that what were you studying there?
Yeah, I did my undergrad at the Naval Academy. So I enlisted, went to the Naval Academy, went back in the Marine Corps, so made the same mistake twice. And then after I got out, I got my master's at UT in technology commercialization, which is, this tiny corner of the business world where you take some lab technology and try and build a business out of it, having no idea that this is what I would end up doing. Around that time, my father was thinking about retiring, and we were sitting over Thanksgiving dinner, kind of catching up 5 years ago, and that's where I kind of pitched him and convinced him to come over to the dark side and in business, and this is the best way to really get this technology that he discovered for the farmers of New York and really make it available to farmers across the Midwest.
Did he ever try to recruit you into academia?
No, he warned me.
No. Okay, he warned you. Got it. So you did the recruiting of getting him into business then.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the work wasn't done. I think a lot of your audience who's in ag will kind of know about that kind of gravitational pull that pulls you back into kind of this world. And we didn't want this technology to go sit on a shelf somewhere and not. I think it can have quite a big benefit, for the farmers that we work with.
Now, the technology, when you say you were digging in the cornfield and you were looking at what exactly were some of those early things that you were doing as part of this whole let's help dad.
Yeah, so in corn rootworm was the focus of a lot of that research, and in the summer you go dig corn roots to kind of score the roots. So you've got to go dig all these things up. His lab also took about 500,000 soil samples over the life of the technology, so helping out with that, and then just trying to divide and conquer with the kids, and I would go with him during the summertime and drive around wonderful New York. Just what a kid wants to do.
Yeah, the other guys are on bikes in the pool. I'm in the truck with dad digging in the dirt, and that's kind of how that all works out.
Yeah.
I get
The,
it there.
well, the deal was I could sit in the truck and it would take longer, or I could get out and help, and then we could get home faster. So
Ah,
I think
I've heard that
I
trick.
might use that with my own
Yeah,
kids. Yeah.
yeah. So then, Persistent BioControl is the name of the company, and it's
Hmm.
you. You're it. Why the
Yep.
name, and why do this on your own? Why not go work for somebody that's already kind of in this field, doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So persistence, kind of our key innovation is I guess I'll back up. So we sell these microscopic worms called nematodes. They live in the soil and they attack soil insects. And that was the solution for this invasive pest that's only in northern New York. It's only in 4 counties. It's what my father worked on for 30 years. And these nematodes will seek out soil insect pests, kill them, and then reproduce. So it's this really cool, natural, self-replicating system that we've figured out how to harness for farmers. Uh, what was your question again? Sorry.
Well, my question is just, well, you just kind of gave me the overview of the company and how this works, but it's not, is it that when you say it's only 4 counties in New York, I believe last time let me look at my notes here. Yeah, rootworms everywhere. So what's different about those 4 counties in New York versus the rest of the area?
So my father kind of stumbled on to the fact that this works in rootworm. The original research is for a different insect. But once we figured out that, oh, we could help farmers across the Midwest with rootworm problems, now I think it's something worth commercializing. So there's a lot of different soil insects that these microscopic worms will go after and control. We have a 7-year continuous study in rootworm, basically looking at control through rotation and after going after rootworm. So corn's really our first market that we're going into. It's what we're most familiar with, but it's really just the first market.
Corn in Texas and the way it's grown, and even I shouldn't just say corn, but some crops in some states, there is no rotation. It is the same thing year after year after year. When you mention rotation, does it mean something different down there than it does where you're seated today?
Yeah, a lot of the farmers we work with are corn on corn for going back 20 years, right? They don't rotate, and that's really stressed out put a lot of pressure on the rootworm traits that are the current solution. The farmers in New York are mostly dairy farmers, so it's a 4-year alfalfa corn rotation, so it's a little easier. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work with some guys out in Nebraska and northern southern Minnesota that I think have been corn on corn for like 50 years under irrigation or rain fed. So, and a lot of the guys we work with are they're corn on corn because they're feeding some type of livestock, right? So I think they they couldn't afford not to rotate, right? Because they need to feed their livestock.
Yeah, you got to grow what's in the. You got to grow what's needed to feed those animals that are coming in and out of the barn twice a day. If it's in a dairy situation or if it's
Yeah.
just in a cattle operation, so it does create. Because what's the? I mean, again, not everybody that listens or watches this is in day-to-day farming. So rootworm traits, you mentioned that is sometimes in the trait of the seed to get rid of the rootworm.
Yeah, it's the current solution. The seed companies have figured out how to insert a gene from a bacteria into the corn plant so that the plant produces what Bt toxin, which is harmful to rootworm. What we're seeing are widespread resistance to these toxins. So we've listeners may be familiar with herbicide tolerant weeds, insecticide tolerant insects, and now we've got these trait tolerant rootworm. There's been a big shift over the last 5 years. 5 years ago, we had trouble getting people to admit there was a problem, but you know, people were kind of hush hush about it. But now I think it's gotten more widespread, the problem's worse. So it's really about using every tool in the toolbox to try and control rootworm. And that's what the nematodes really provide, is they'll come in as an independent mode of action and kill off all those resistant survivors that would normally make it to adulthood and cause more rootworm pressure and damage. And it's something that you only have to apply once.
Once over how long?
So our data goes back 30 years. So you know, the lawyers won't let me say forever, but you know, a long time, more than 1 year. Which again, that starts to make us sound a little snake oily, right? But we've got the data. And I think this year we crossed 100,000 acres have been treated with these persistent nematodes. About 65,000 are in New York, and the rest across the Midwest. So this is the largest biocontrol program that I know of across the most acres.
And okay, the snake oil thing, we'll let that one pass. We might go back to that in a minute, but I want to get into
Sure.
where you're seated first, because that kind of, I think, explains part of your last answer. You are in a facility in central Iowa, right? Or can you say where you're at?
Yep. Yeah. We're south of Webster City. We're setting up this winter our first large scale production facility. When it's all up and running, we'll be able to do about 100,000 acres of nematodes a year. So we're looking to scale up, and so far each year we've sold out. So you know, my hope is that we'll sell out again this year. But we should have probably 20 to 30,000 acres ready for the spring, our kind of our spring sales cycle.
And so I mean, it looks like the way I can see it, like a little air conditioner unit above your head, and those are individual.
Yeah.
They almost look like freezers of sorts. Is that coolers? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Modules?
Yeah. I say grow rooms, but you know, I call them grow rooms, but the basic process, since they're insect attacking only, we use insects to grow them. So we go pick up insects from our suppliers. We do our thing and then stick them in these grow rooms for a set amount of time. And it's a biological process, so we want to keep a constant temperature, constant humidity, you know, kind of a controlled environment. And once they're ready to come out, we've kind of hit peak nematode production. We pull them out and send them down the assembly line and then separate them. We've got these machines we've developed that separate the nematodes from all the gunk and stuff, the insect parts and the things they grow in. And then we put them in long-term storage once we separate them from that, and then they're ready to go for delivery. About the end of April is when we usually start delivering for corn rootworm.
So you are doing the delivery. It's not you are sending it to somewhere else. You are going to Farmer Johnson, and here's your order. Then what happens?
Yeah, you can't kill because they're alive. You can't just stick them in the mail, right? It's we don't trust anybody to keep them alive yet. We got to figure all that out. But right now, we're delivering everything in person, and that way we can talk with the farmer. Kind of, we talk through application. Delivery comes. They come in a solution, and so either the farmer provides one of those big IBC totes that you see on farms, or we provide the tote sometimes for big orders, and it comes in solution, and we basically give them the formula like, hey, it's 1 gallon per 5 acres, um, and then they're applied just like any other input with your ground sprayer. So no special equipment needed. Yeah, and it's a one time application.
And forgive me because science is not my specialty really at all, Keegan. But when
It's
you
not mine
say
either.
applied with the sprayer, I mean, so that makes it, what's that?
Oh, it's not my specialty either. Science.
Okay, well, good. That's fine. But it sounds like when you say put out with the sprayer, that's how big these nematodes are. I mean, they are basically water or like pellets, like pellet size, I guess.
So we deliver them in this solution, and then the farmer mixes them with water in their sprayer, and then puts them on. We use these fertilizer stream nozzles, so you can imagine a solid stream going down on the ground, and that's enough moisture to get the nematodes down into the soil. And once they're
And
on in enough quantity, they take it from there.
is this done at planting or in like June after the plant has emerged and maybe is in V5 or something or above?
So for the farmers that are skeptical, which is a lot of our new customers, we tell them to put it on in the month of May, and so they can see maximum first year impact. The actual application window is really wide, so anytime May to September, you can put them on. Anytime the soil temperature is above 50 Fahrenheit. So the farmers that are
Okay.
convinced and they're kind of finishing up doing their whole farm, they like to apply in the fall when it's a bit less crazy than the spring.
And then does this cycle through? I think you can't say forever, but a long term product. If I take this field and put it to beans next year, do I just wipe out that application and in 2 years when I go back to corn, do I have to reapply? How does that work?
Yeah, so this was developed for those dairy farms with a 4-year corn alfalfa rotation. So we've got a ton of data that these survive any kind of rotation. And if you're rotating, like let's say you rotate into wheat, um, they'll provide a benefit. Like they'll go after wireworms when you're in your wheat, and then you'll switch back to corn. So they will persist across rotations, and a lot of data that shows. Probably our most extreme example is Roswell, New Mexico. So the most different from New York. It's very hot, very harsh, under irrigation down there, and we've got persistence going on 6 years now. So we go back every year and sample that field. That's kind of our extreme test case.
Wow, that is that's crazy. But when well, okay, I'll ask this now. Why Webster City? Because in that area, from what I know, yeah, there's some corn on corn on corn, but not a ton. It is much more of a rotation. It sounds like you belong more in Wisconsin or in Kansas or something like that.
So Iowa, I know nobody in Nebraska would admit this, but I think Iowa is kind of the Silicon Valley of ag. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on here, so we always wanted to move here and kind of be in the mix of it. And it puts us really close to our suppliers. Our suppliers are also in the Midwest, so and also obviously close to all our customers. So we're kind of centrally located. We're a couple hours from everywhere, and we've got access to a couple main highways too, which helps.
How do I
And,
know
and
this thing
Webster
is
City is a
working?
great city.
Oh, yeah, absolutely it is. I'm very familiar with Webster City. So sorry, I cut you off. I jumped that one. I guess I'll just ask, why, how do I know this thing is working?
So if you want to know what your if persistence is happening, we can come take soil samples and bioassay them. That's kind of how the research tracks whether there's these worms that you can't see with the naked eye in your soil. We go out and take a standard soil core and then test it for nematodes. We actually throw in some insects and see if they die, and then see what comes out of them, kind of determine if the nematodes are what killed them. But also, you can really see the impact when you walk the field in the summer, and also you can see it on your yield monitor when you're harvesting. So, our best sales tool has been we'll sell you 60 acres at half price, and then you can try it on your farm and see if we're full of it, right? We tell guys, take your worst rootworm field, you treat half of it with biocontrol nematodes, and then kind of measure in the fall and see what kind of yield recovery you get. And I would say
Yeah,
that the people that take us up on it, they usually come back and buy more. So
yeah, I'm guessing that's what I was going to say. I'm guessing by the nature of the size of what's behind you, there must be some happy customers who want to buy again, and expand, double or triple that 60 acres.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Our biggest challenge is trying to find a farmer who wants to try it in an area. The kind of the pattern we've seen is once one or two farmers try it and tell their neighbors that this is really sold farmer to farmer. And because it sounds a little bit crazy, it's a little bit outside the normal. But I think if we can deliver just a ton of value for the farmers, then we could do some good and help them out.
Well, you mentioned the Iowa farmer, or the Iowa farm landscape is that of research and trying something new, which means nearly every farmer's had somebody come knock on their door, pull into the yard, and try to sell them something over the years. What,
Yeah.
how do you clear that skepticism that's just naturally built up in us in this state?
Well, we've got a bit of track record. So if this was just me showing up with no data, like I wouldn't buy this from me, right? I don't have any credibility. So I think kind of our scientific pedigree helps, and at least gets us in the door, right? Like, hey, give it a try, see if it works on your farm, and then tell a neighbor if you're happy with it, and help us spread the word.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know of products I have purchased before. I'll say, I don't see you advertise, and like, we don't have to. Our customers do it for us. I'm not saying that I've not seen your advertisement at Hilton Coliseum or something like that in a big, like listening to Cyclone Radio. You always hear whatever farm product. Um, you're not at a point where you can handle that scale, but B, word of mouth is, those are your disciples, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we had an event this spring where one of our early customers stood up, an older gentleman who is a hog farmer, and he looked at the room. Everybody knew him, and he's like, "Hey guys, I know this is crazy, but it works. It really works." And he sat down, and that was like, you can't all of the spending and marketing you wanted. Like that guy did more for that room than anything I would ever say. So I think the people that adopt it and try it are believers, and I mean, honestly, we don't have a marketing budget, so that helps.
You are getting what major corporations pay for when it comes to influencers. I mean, that's what they are for you.
Yeah, yeah, all these local influencers before we knew to call them influencers, right? I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's usually a group in every community of innovative farmers that are really curious about what's the new technology is and want to try it. And I think a lot of people look to them to see kind of as a testing ground.
Let's go to the natural side of this, or the biology that's involved, because we're in an
Sure.
environment, as we look at a new administration that has a couple of nominees that are maybe going to completely uproot a lot of things that we traditionally think of as working as successful, and natural or non-chemical or non-GMO has potential. Are you a non-GMO product? I guess. I guess I don't know if you can even classify it.
Yeah, we're so we source our nematodes from nature. They're native to New York. That's where they were isolated from. And we're certified for, we work with a lot of organic farmers in different markets, a lot of root crop farmers in the Northeast and in Canada that are growing sweet potatoes, turnips, that sort of thing. Those farms tend to be a lot smaller, and so you have to work a lot harder to convince somebody for something that's maybe 20 acres. So that's why we've kind of started with corn. We've got better data, and if you've got a grower you can convince that's got a couple thousand acres, then that's helpful. But yeah, definitely, we want to get into that market. I think it's all about capacity. You know, it's a few people. We're looking to hire some employees, but we've got all these adjacent markets that we want to break into eventually when there's time.
In adjacent, you mean other crops?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Other
Yeah.
crops.
Okay. Okay.
I
Sorry.
I went and treated my neighbor's rose bushes, which were getting destroyed by black vine weevil. Like, you know, for years you see the decline, right, and all the damage. And I think I put about an acre's worth of nematodes on her, like 3 or 4 rose bushes, and there's not going to be a problem there next year.
Well, maybe that's the issue with the raspberries I have back here. Maybe they have really
It might
stopped
be.
producing. You know, I hadn't even thought about that. That could
Hmm.
be what's in play. What's exciting about this for you, Keegan?
Well, I can mail you some, or you can stop by. We'll give you some. Put them on your raspberry. Sorry, say that question again.
What's next? I mean, you talk about expansion and adjacent markets, but you know, is this just something that is growing for corn more important than growing to other crops or other commodities?
Well, I think corn's really our beachhead market. You know, it's something we know very well. So we're going to try and grow traction and grow with the corn market, and then kind of bring these other markets online. And then I think eventually we'll probably get into the consumer market. You know, with kind of smaller form factor packaging. I think there's a lot of interest. Some very passionate people are gardeners, and I can't grow anything to save my life, but I know a lot of gardeners who that I've given nematodes to just to help them out. So there's quite a big insect pressure is an issue, and soil insects are really the hardest problem in ag. Right? You can't spray anything to get rid of them because they're in the ground. They're really hard to get to. So I think this has the potential to really revolutionize kind of how we go after those soil insects.
Well, and there is a pushback on using sprays in some corners of agriculture and some neighbors. So this, if you can sell them a natural alternative, I think you certainly perk up the ears of many folks. I'm guessing that's something you. I mean, you got a lot of things you got to do, but is that something you watch and monitor?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think that was gonna be a big selling point for the farmers in corn, but as these GMO traits have run into trouble, farmers have had to go back and start using soil insecticides again, which are hazmat. They're definitely carcinogenic, right? There's a lot of other issues, and you know, your repeated exposure. Farmers over 30 years, I think they've watched their parents or the older generation, you know, get sick, and they're not enthused about having to go back and use these toxic products that they may have been around when they were a kid. So this is not only is it a cost saving, you don't have to use soil insecticide anymore. You're also not having to expose yourself to that. So quite a few people have come up to me and talked about that, which, you know, I don't have a lot of experience with farmers, but you know, for me as an outsider, it was unexpected.
Do you get the sense that there be a little bit of experimentation by some growers that may be in a spot? We'll just use your home state of Texas that might have 5 or 6 crops just because of the way the calendar works. They could say, I'm going to
Mhm.
try it here. Keegan didn't say it's okay, but I'm going to try it and see. I mean, do you know of experimental growers that are trying different things? with this product?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of give them the guardrails and then turn them loose. We most of our acres were applied with sprayers, but we've had farmers try all sorts of ways. So we give them the recommendation. We know they're going to go off and test different things, but we're there for support. We say usually we tell them like apply it the way we say the first time, and that way you know it works. And then I'm happy to sell you as many nematodes as you want if you want to try all these other ways that mix them with manure and mix them with the fertilizer and all these other things. We say it's not really a great idea, but
But that's research, and it might not be official
that's
research
research.
like
Yeah.
it would be at Cornell or at a university, but it is. Farmers are very much big into trial and error and seeing if something works. They're like, I've seen this. How about if I do this? Because they're looking for ways to. Because every farm is different. Every field is different.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think that's another thing I didn't have a great appreciation for is how much farming varies across the country and all these different cropping systems. So I always try and ask, in your area, like what's your best practice? And we know that this technology fits in really well, but it may be a different time of year is less busy for you. Under irrigation, so that the farmers out in western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, they apply nematodes through with the irrigation water, right? So they're able to get over their corn much later than maybe a farmer in Iowa. So I'm always learning. I think
Well, and
that's going to continue.
I'm always learning when I have somebody that deals with farmers from other areas, not just their own neck of the woods. But I always ask this about, is there anything that it sounds like you just answered my question. Anything that binds a farmer from New York, from Texas, from Nebraska to Iowa to Minnesota? Is there anything other than ingenuity and that ties them together?
I think they're all eternal optimists. I don't know that I would make it as a farmer, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's basically the same person, all the way across.
Yeah. Yeah. That glass is always half full. But then they're also thinking it's half
Sure.
empty too at the same time because it's never going to rain. The market's never going to rebound. But I'm still going to plant anyway come May.
That's right. That's what I do.
All right, Keegan, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the insight. It's just fascinating to learn what's being out there. And thank you for the mini tour of what you have behind you.
Yeah. Anybody that wants to stop by, we'll give you the nickel tour, and I appreciate the time.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. This is still
actually, this is the end of the podcast where it's my time to shine. And Paul, I'm taking over here for a minute.
Well, it's about time. I've been waiting for this for a long time. This is much more fun to be the guest.
Is it?
Well, we'll find out.
Okay. We totally just made this up as we're going to do this right now. So on the spot, I'm not in this role ever. You're always the one that's having to come up with the questions and think and talk at the same time. Not an easy task, but why do you love doing this so much?
Ooh, I don't know. Because I'm in control. I get to talk. I always, the Yeager family, we are professional talkers, but I'm the only one that gets paid to do it.
You've used that bit too many times. I bet anybody listening to this podcast right now has already heard that. Okay, so Fridays.
Yeah.
Friday we do 2 shows.
Yeah.
Iowa Press, Market to Market. You are involved with both of those in a capacity.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more so with Market, would you say?
I
mean,
guess.
you're the face.
Yeah.
So Iowa Press, what do you do for Iowa Press?
I am the live tweeter. So that means I sit and listen to the show and I say, this guest said, da 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 da, return, hit this guest. And so I kind of like basically make notes during the show and say, and if you want to watch this show, be sure to check out our social channels and it'll be on at 7:30 tonight on Iowa PBS.
Do you get a lot of like feedback or like responses at all? To
I don't
live
look at
tweeting?
those.
You don't look at them. That's probably smart.
I am not the producer of the show. I'm doing what I've been told. I'm more responsible for the tweets of Market, and I keep an eye on those. But I just, we're not putting out inflammatory statements trying to draw clicks. We're not doing that for either show. But for Press, I'm just there to kind of inform that this is what is said.
Well, versus Market, where we actually ask people to say, hey, send us a tweet or message on social or email, and we want to interact with you, and we'll reply to your question on air. So that's one of the things that we actually do different in market than we do press. So press, from our technical side, we check in with you guys to see if you need any help with anything.
Which is usually most of the time.
Which is most of the time, which is why we have to check in with you so frequently. So then after press is over, what do you do to prepare for market?
I'm still writing the script at this point. I'm also compiling the social media questions. I'm having my boss look over both of those to see if they make sense, what I've said, make sure there's no misspellings, which usually still slips by us both. We have to fix that in the control room. Hey, did you mean to say this? I think that happens quite often.
It does.
Yeah, and that's one of those conversations that happens in the control room
Yep.
quite often of, oh, seriously, Paul.
Yeah, because we can hear you reading the prompter in the control room, and I'll say, wait, what did he just say? Did he really mean to say, is that really another alliteration or sports reference or a bad pun? Those are your favorite, aren't they?
I don't even know what you're talking about with sports references.
I
Bad puns, sure. Play on words, yes. So yeah, I'm in the middle of writing, and then I'm getting content ready in the sense of what I'm going to say or what somebody else is going to say. You are involved with what we're going to see and hear.
Right. So while you're doing that, we're flipping the set from Iowa Press to market and getting that ready to go. So that 2:30 comes around, you can stand in front of the camera, read the prompter. Hopefully by that time, we're not making as many changes.
Yeah, I practice. I do a lot of lifting of my eyebrow to, make sure, because that's what they teach you in anchor school.
Oh.
That and the hair.
Of course.
Those are the
right?
two things. And your voice. You're supposed to talk as low as you can.
Well, clearly I was not made for that role whatsoever. Okay, so we get through market. We've recorded market. We finish up. We then go back to the edit booth to get everything ready to go. Closed captioning wise, sometimes if there's like a fix of any kind, not of content, but of technical nature, if they're, like you say, we didn't catch that misspelling, we need to fix that in post, anything like that. We finish our exports, and then we check in with you guys one last time to say, what else do you need, Paul?
Well, and so I look and see, I have that transcript. Wait a minute, it doesn't separate speakers. It needs to say Mark Gold and Paul Yeager. Can you redo that?
Yes.
Or I don't see the export of the Market Plus.
It's there. Did you look in the right folder?
Oh, and then I didn't look in the right folder. So again, it's a lot of back and forth.
Yep.
And we're all we're looking at that clock going, please let us get out of here soon.
Yep. I mean, because we all want to go home, right? It's the weekend. But it is fun to do television in that way versus when you're out in the field and just shooting little bits here and there. To actually feel like, oh, gosh, we put together a half-an-hour show today.
And you really never wanted to be on
I
television.
really never did.
I think you did a really good job.
Well,
Thanks, Julie.
Well, thank you, Paul.
All right. Can I do my end now?
I guess.
Or do you want to do it? Do you know it?
I don't.
Okay.
I
If you have
email,
more,
blah, blah, blah.
email, blah, 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 talk over the guest, blah, blah, blah. So some things never
Nailing
change.
it.
Yeah, I nailed it. If you have an idea for a segment that we can do as we explore all the technical sides and content sides of Market to Market, send me an email, markettomarket@Iowa PBS, right there on the screen. We will be back next Tuesday with another installment of the podcast, and you just never know when we're going to do one of these tech talks. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
I really wish your shot was up there because I really wanted to just